Part 2: A Resolution and Dead-End Paths. The fear and anxiety about the possibility of going to hell had been buried in my mind for a few years, but resurfaced in a profound way. I joined the Navy in 1966, and my first duty station was the aircraft carrier, the Ticonderoga. We spent 9 months off the coast of North Vietnam, conducting bombing missions 24/7. Our ship was commissioned in 1942 and not built for flying modern jets off a wooden flight deck. I worked in the steam engine rooms, stood watches, and worked 16-hour days. Not much time to stew over hell, since it was a hellish environment. On the way back to my home port in San Diego, I applied to be transferred to in-country duty in South Vietnam. I was told by the officer in charge of my division that the chances of my request being approved were nil. He was wrong. Before we arrived at home port, orders came through for my departure for SEER school, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, before being shipped out to Da Nang, South Vietnam for further assignment. That evening, the reality that I was about to enter a war zone and may not survive brought my head out of the proverbial sand and back into the fear and anxiety of the possibility of going to hell. I knew I had to work this out before arriving in Vietnam, so I made my way to my favorite thinking and relaxing spot on a catwalk under the flight deck. This spot extended beyond the ship's bow, suspended over the ocean. I could only sense freedom and space. This is where I called out to God and Satan and demanded they speak their piece. I told them if they refused that, I would never worry about them when I left the catwalk ever again. After a reasonable amount of time, I heard nothing. I left the catwalk and have never feared hell since. Looking back later in life, I realized the power of a complete and absolutely firm decision. My view that hell might exist did not change, but my fear of it no longer had power over me. Situation resolved. I did 2 tours on riverboats in Vietnam and was honorably discharged in January of 1970. After wandering from job to job for a few months, I settled in Houston, Texas, where I began the next stage of my spiritual journey. I don't recall what triggered it, but I started reading books on various subjects such as witchcraft, astral projection, mediums, Edgar Cayce books, and so forth. I met someone who was a white witch and had many discussions about these topics. It didn't take long to see that these paths were dead ends. This stage went on for about 2 years, and although it was unproductive, I kept my interest in finding answers to life's questions. That set the stage for the next chapter in my spiritual journey: Scientology and the writings of L. Ron Hubbard. Stay tuned, much more to come in the following article. To read more, visit www.shadetreemusings.com for more captivating stories. For updates and more engaging content, follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, this is Jerry Pritchett.